The Russian offensive on Avdiivka began on a large scale, with artillery and aircraft supporting columns of equipment moving to break through the defense lines near the city. However, despite the use of such serious offensive capabilities, the first echelon failed to achieve any of their objectives. Obviously, something went wrong, because the second echelon was used to consolidate the achieved result in the fields. That is, the result of the initial offensive was not the capture of villages, cutting the railroad or control over the heap, but the occupation of trenches and woodlots in the field. This meant that there was no longer enough resources for further offensives, and an accelerated transfer of forces from the Lugansk region began. But even after the reinforcement, they failed to achieve their goals either on the northern or southern flank. By the end of October, the Russian command had already concentrated units of several armies, more than 40,000 personnel in the area of Avdiivka. The pressure per kilometer of the front here is twice the pressure that was exerted in the Bakhmut area. The enemy is using a mixed type of assault action. They try to break through the defenses with armored columns as in Vugleda. But when they are destroyed, they start mass assaults with infantry component, a tactic that was called meat wave at Bakhmut. Using mixed tactics, they were able to succeed only in open areas in the fields. But as they approached the main lines of defense, a problem immediately arose. In the area of Avdiivka the occupants lost 10 almost full-fledged battalion tactical groups. But despite the losses, the task of the Russian troops remains unchanged, the progressive and systematic encirclement of Avdiivka, with subsequent tightening of the ring at the level of operational encirclement. But it is worth recalling, that during the entire time of the full-scale invasion, they were able to encircle only one city, Mariupol. And it happened in conditions of not the best position of the city, and at the peak of offensive functionality of the enemy. Now they will critically lack the allocated resource, and it will be necessary to withdraw it from other bridgeheads. They cannot withdraw from Kherson region, because there is a serious problem there in the form of a grey zone on the left bank of the Dnipro, which the Russian command cannot solve for almost a year. In Zaporizhia region it is similar, because the AFU is only waiting for the weakening of the enemy in this area to break through to Tokmak. In Donetsk region, in addition to the offensive on Avdiivka, the Russians are concerned about the Ukrainian advance in the southern sector of Bakhmut. Only the Luhansk region remains, but this resource is not infinite and its weakening may end with the fact that after imitating their large-scale offensive on Liman-Kupinsk axis, the occupiers themselves can begin to retreat to the R66 highway. The coming weeks may clearly show the situation in perspective. If the Russian command is ready to further strengthen the offensive at the expense of resources from other bridgeheads, it may capture Avdiivka. At the cost of colossal losses and loss of control over much larger territories. We witnessed a similar picture while the Russians were advancing on Bakhmut. They lost most of Kharkiv region and the right bank of Kherson region. And what did this offensive give them except pathos for internal consumption? Nothing but colossal losses. This is the fate of the Russian command, to step on the same rake time after time.